Juggling being a graphic designer and figuring out this crazy YouTube algorithm is no easy feat, but no designer has seemed to crack the code better than Brandon Shepard. Brandon Shepard creates these amazing design videos that not only have an awesome finished product, but the entire process along the way is entertaining for any type of creative audience. So today I sat down with Brandon Shepard to get an inside look into his video game roots, how he started his graphic design career with just $6 in his bank account, and how Brandon quit YouTube for an entire year just to come back with some mega viral hits. Let's get into it. You were telling me that you went to school for computer engineering, and then you got your start in video game design. What made you transfer first from engineering to the video game stuff? Because that's already a leap in itself outside of just graphic design.
Hey man, so I actually started making video games back when I was in middle school. So really young Brandon was back then, and I discovered a program called Blender. A lot of people know it now. It's like a 3D modeling program and animation and stuff. But back then it actually had a game engine. And as soon as I figured out that you could actually make games yourself, you didn't need to be some big studio or whatever to make a game, I was just I was floored. And so I spent a long time just twiddling and trying to make cool things. And then my brother got into it, and we kind of dreamed up this, I guess, fantasy of starting our own game studio. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the main reasons I did computer engineering in college at all. It's I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't exactly know what my major should be. So I figured, I wanted to do video games, might as well pick something with computers to do that. And that just kind of fit together that way, which, it worked out really good because I learned how to code. I learned just how to think through deep, complex problems. And when I got out of school, that's when we tried to make a real run for it and, make some games. Didn't go so great, but, the dream was there while it lasted, I guess.
Yeah. Was the engineering stuff more of your kind of just plan for college and the more, I guess, safer route to also get a degree?
Yeah, it was good for a backup. I mean, I honestly never really considered getting a job in engineering after college. That was never really in the plans. Mm-hmm. I just liked math. And so I figured, engineering would be something fun to do. Did
any of the stuff that you learned when you're doing video game design directly translate to some of your graphic design skills now?
I think everything, to be honest. Yeah. I had no graphic design skills at all. But when I started making video games, you need art for games. So mm-hmm. I had to learn how to make art, and everything was trash at first. I used all sorts of free little programs and just tried to figure it out. I always had some decent drawing ability, and that transferred pretty good over into digital work. And it was just a lot of, at that stage when you're a brand new game maker, you almost never finish a single game, right? You start one and you work on it for a month, and then you throw it away and you do a new one. And so that's not good for game development, but it was kind of nice to just work on my art skills, because every single game was a different art style. And so I learned, different illustration techniques and things like that. And I think that gives me a little bit of an edge, even through the graphic design stuff, is because I can make illustrations. Because I feel like a lot of designers don't really necessarily have the illustration side of things. They stick more to just images, typography, that type of stuff, which is perfectly fine. But I think some of the more interesting ideas kind of require that extra skill set.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, I feel like your style definitely does lean a lot more illustrative, even when it comes to the logo designs. And knowing now that you had such a video game background, it looks like stuff that would be able to live in a greater world of different things, as an asset or whatever.
When I first started YouTube, I checked out the space to see if graphic design was even a possible niche that you could to grow in at all. Mm-hmm. And I kept noticing that so many graphic design videos just didn't really get the views I thought they deserved. But all the illustration videos, not design illustration, but just people, painting stuff in Photoshop, concept art or just drawing that stuff gets massive views. And I was always jealous. I was like, man, these illustrators are getting all the attention and the designers aren't. So maybe I can try to lean a little bit more into the illustration side and hopefully get, some of that same audience in.
That's a good point. And I think part of that just comes from, since illustration is completely scratch to finish, it's inherently more interesting to watch the process unfold. Yeah. So, because I've even noticed that, and not to say that the illustrators themselves aren't good. I think their work is beautiful, but some of the videos, it's just a time lapse with the music.
Yeah. Yes, I've seen a lot of those types of videos. And it's like, they're easy to make because people that can draw don't necessarily want to be YouTubers, but they want to show off their drawings, you know? And so you don't have to do narration and stuff like that. I mean, that's honestly something I kind of experimented more so with my first videos. It's like every single design I would show like every click that I made.
Right.
And so like even I would just stop speaking, and if I was, you know, painting a bunch of shadows or something, I would just time lapse that. And so there would be like 5 seconds of silence of me painting shadows because I thought people might be interested in actually seeing the process. And now I realize I guess looking back on those, that it really breaks the flow of the narration of the audio to do that. And it doesn't really add like that much, I think, information to it, because like with time lapses, like you could kind of see what's going on, but it's at a fast enough pace to where you're not going to get any deep knowledge out of it. So you might as well just like skip it. And as long as, you know, the steps aren't too far apart, people can still figure out what's going on.
Yeah, because even if you're taking out that filler space, it's almost just as useless leaving it in if it's so fast that you can't even decipher what's going on. Because I used to get the same way. I've been trying to lean a little bit more in the videos where I'm actually designing to you know, prioritize slightly more like entertainment over every little piece. But there's always a part of me that remembers the people that commented like, that was way too fast. How'd you do that thing when you clicked here and clicked there? And it's like, it's weird when you've been doing something for so long, you almost forget that it's something that everyone doesn't know, like a hotkey or whatever.
For sure. Like the amount of people that have asked me like, what app am I using? It's just insane. Like I had one guy literally comment and ask, what program does Brandon use to Photoshop things? Like that was his question. It's like, I use Photoshop, you know, obviously, but it's just, but yeah, I mean, and you forget, like if you went and tried a completely brand new program or tried to find information about it that you had no idea about, you know, you'd be in the same boat. You know, it's once you get to a certain skill level, it's very hard to put yourself back into like the newbie shoes, you know?
And I think you're serving kind of a different audience when it comes to design. Like your videos I think can be things that people can learn from, but it's almost secondary to like let's look at these cool things and think of this idea. Like what could this be, rather than, you know, a 5-part series, how to just take this logo to this logo or whatever.
Yeah. Like my very first videos, I guess my philosophy for the channel was I want to teach people how to think about design. Like not what buttons to press, you know, not follow these 12 steps to do this one specific thing. I want them to like, you know, get the mindset of like, if I want to create something, how do I think about that? How do I come up with a cool idea? And so I'd say my first videos were definitely more educational leaning in that way. Like I would explain things a lot more and like why I chose this font or, you know, what this specific function can do in Photoshop and whatnot. But people are more interested into something, I guess, that falls into that more entertainment category rather than just a knowledge category. And I'm working on some design courses and stuff too. And so I'm just going to leave all the deep knowledge stuff for that and just have like the cool, fun stuff in the actual videos.
You've done a good job at, transcending like the graphic design niche from just only for designers thing to something like your videos are like good for even like the TV, you know, because I'm not like doing it with you. I'm just watching it and it ends and that's it, rather than trying to follow along or whatever. Which
that's not an original idea. There wasn't a whole lot of people doing it in the design space, but you know, I watched this one guy called Fat Dino. I don't know if you've ever seen his videos, but he does videos like he'll take very simple apps like Angry Birds or Plants vs. Zombies, and he'll recreate them in Unreal Engine, like with super cool graphics and stuff, like amazing videos. But his videos are much more like process driven rather than showing like, I use this code block to do this specific thing. You know, it's like very high level and kind of entertainment value, even though the dude is like super monotone and chill. Like it's not a high energy video, but it's just high interest. Right. And so I think that's the key really. It's like if somebody that doesn't know how to, in that instance, make video games, or in my instance, they don't know how to design, I still want them to be able to watch the video and get some joy out of it, I guess, which is a big reason why I use popular products these days, you know, like the Pringles or the Cheetos, like things that people know, because it's more interesting if you go and you buy Pringles from the store, you know, it's at least you have some interest in Pringles. And so if you see that in a YouTube video, that's much more interesting to watch than just like some random product you've never heard of, even if the redesign is just as good, like it doesn't matter. It's just like watching a video because of some famous person is in it. You know, if Jack Black or somebody like that is in a YouTube video, it's going to draw a lot more attention than just some random guy, even if they're the same level of, you know, entertaining or funny or whatever. It's just that familiarity aspect that draws people in.
I think that is one of my biggest flaws that I can easily get over by doing that. But everything I'm so interested in is like so niche sometimes. And I'm like, damn, I really like this and I want to make this. And then I do sometimes and it doesn't perform like I thought. And it's obvious why, but I don't know, like, not to sound like too hipstery, but there's just so many really popular things that I know I could use that I don't have any interest in. So I can't even fake it in a way, you know?
Yeah, I get you. I mean, that's part of the reason I'm going to start trying to make more short form content for things that I can experiment with and fun design projects that maybe don't have like super mass appeal. I can still make those and save the main channel for all the really highly popular, famous type of stuff.
You mentioned to me that when you first started doing design, you only had like $6 or something like that. You're broke or whatever.
Yeah.
What were you doing at that moment and before like design as like a YouTuber? What was your kind of journey like in that space?
Man, it was a long journey, to be honest. So like right after college, that's when I said, like, me and my brother, we got together, tried to make this video game studio. It was the first time that we were both out of the house. Of course, he was still living, you know, with our family when he was in high school, but he moved into the town I was in for college, and we had a little apartment. And of course, at that point, you know, you kind of feel like an adult. You've got to pay bills, you know, and you can't just live for free. And we had some savings and stuff saved up, and we thought that we had enough to at least make it through a little while we made some games, maybe reach out to some publishers, try to get our first little successful app going. And honestly, I don't know, man, time just dwindled away. Problems came up with the games and publishers and things, and it just never really happened. And so the savings just got burnt through. I mean, it's just month after month, it gets lower and lower and lower. And at a certain point, I'm like, I have literally no money left at all. And it was honestly like a godsend, because just randomly, my mom had found like this envelope that had some savings bonds in it that one of my grandparents had given to me like years and years ago, and I had totally forgot about it. And it had enough to at least sustain us for a few more months. And so it's like, at that point, it's like, I know we need to do something different here, because this is not working. We've kind of been bailed out by this little mini miracle, I suppose, and let's make the most of this chance. And so I figured, like, I want to make money online. I never really wanted to work for somebody else. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was my whole goal. And just the more I researched ways to make money online, I mean, I tried a few things that you know, I guess you see all the time on different ads, like drop shipping and Facebook ads and all that crap. That once you actually try, you realize a lot of it's just kind of scamish. And then I'm like, well, I can draw some, so maybe I could do some like freelance work. And really at that time, like, freelance wasn't even in my mind as far as a concept. I didn't really know that you could just go online and get clients without, you know, working at a studio or something. It sounds weird to say, but, you know, at that point, you just don't think about that. And so I went on a little job site like Upwork, Fiverr, those types of things, and made my first little design portfolio, which honestly I don't think was too bad for never having designed before. But I got my first job on there. It was a little Photoshop manipulation job, like adding a logo to a hat for like an e-commerce store. Okay. And it was for $10. But man, that was like the sweetest $10 that I've ever gotten, because it kind of proved the concept that money can be made online. You know, you don't have to fall back into working for somebody else at like a typical job. You know, you can do that if you're good enough, if you try hard enough, and if you just put the time in, really. And I mean, that the freelance journey was interesting, and it grew pretty quickly, to be honest. So like I got the first, I mean, you know how the job sites work. As soon as you get one job and you get some ratings and reviews, and it helps you get other jobs, and that just kind of stacks and stacks and stacks. And so I went from, a $10 Photoshop job to charging $20 an hour. That was the first big bump. And at that time I was like, $20 an hour is like a lot of money, looking up to other people, adults and stuff that had jobs that did that. And I was like, all right, now we're rocking and rolling. And a few months after that, now it's $40 an hour because I've gotten more experience at 20 and people are willing to pay more and the portfolio has gotten a little bit better. And then within a year, it was like $100 an hour. It's like, and every time I bumped that up, I was obviously like super scared to lose all my clients and stuff, but you just kind of have to do that if you want to grow, and was enjoying that for quite a while, to be honest. I had a few select clients that I worked with, on a lot of regular work, I guess. I wasn't going out and finding different clients like every month or something. And so it was a nice steady business, but I kind of got myself into a situation where it was like, if these clients leave me, I'm like dead, I have nothing left. So it was kind of too many eggs in the same basket at that point. And I kind of got to the point really to where like, I really enjoyed designing, but I didn't necessarily enjoy the client side of designing. Like I would make really cool designs. The clients would have feedback. They would ruin the designs. That's the story of every designer, I think, ever. Yeah. And I just wanted to make something for myself that stayed the way that I made it, didn't have endless revisions. And so that's where really YouTube, I guess, kind of came into the picture. I'm like, I never really wanted to be a YouTuber. I didn't feel like I had that good of a personality for it. I think I've grown to be a little more comfortable on camera now, but like if you watch my first video, man, it's like, it's hard to watch,
Yeah, I feel the same way.
That's everybody's story. But I just did that. I'm like, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make some designs. I'm going to put it out there and see what people think.
I still practice a lot of, freelance work, and I've come a long way from a similar story, like doing super shitty $5 things for my friends or whatever, all the way to working with real companies. And part of me feels I like to stay in that world to inform like the content as well. Like it's more symbiotic in a way where like I can talk about those experiences and talk about the process of actually working with those people and stuff. But I was surprised at this, and I'm curious if you were, how much I actually did enjoy like the YouTube stuff and wanting to like learn all about it and optimize it. Cause I just imagined first off, like I'm a designer, this is my little side thing, post videos every once in a while. But I was so shocked. I was like, damn, this is almost more interesting than the other career side of it.
Yeah, I feel you. Like I quickly discovered that I really enjoyed making designs for design videos. And I loved editing videos, but I hated filming videos. Like the filming process, I do not enjoy it all. Even today, like, I try to put on a nice, happy, energetic face and stuff, but it's by far my least favorite part of the process. Cause I feel like I have to amp myself up on camera and not necessarily be somebody that I'm not, but try to be a more expressive version of myself. And that doesn't necessarily come naturally to me.
Right.
And so like, instead of really just focusing on the design and the filming, I kind of have to focus on myself a lot more at that point too. And so I guess it's kind of, not my favorite part, but the entire YouTube thing, like after the filming's done, when it comes to the editing booth and you make all the cuts and you can start forming the story, like that is solid. Yeah. I love that.
For real. I agree though. I always tell people the designs I make when I'm recording myself are far worse because I'm so worried about like me over the design almost, because whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's arguably more important, especially if you're recording the process. Like the coolest design in the world probably wouldn't have worked good as like a process video because it was probably someone working on it for weeks in ways that you couldn't really even record. Or when I'm designing and not recording, I'm pretty much in like the dark usually and probably hunched over and shit. It's a way different atmosphere from when you're trying to do like this more performative thing,
Yeah, I feel you.
I feel like you've done a pretty good job, in the YouTube space, especially considering the design niche. Like I don't really know who has pulled in like a similar average view count as you. So now that you have that kind of established identity and career a little carved out for yourself, are you doing any other type of design stuff like outside of just for you and for videos?
So I pretty much have stopped taking on client work, mainly just because I didn't want to do it anymore. I'd rather make videos than work on client work. I will make exceptions if like the client is exceptional. So if it's like a really big brand or the project is really interesting or it's got a very good budget, then I'll make an exception for that and do that. But I'm not doing a whole lot of design work outside of the videos. I am, of course, like I said, making design courses, making some products and stuff. I don't know if you saw it, but I just released a product for YouTubers called ClickPilot. Yeah,
it's dope, dude. I was checking it out earlier. Really good.
It basically just, helps people preview thumbnails and stuff. That was a process I was doing manually before. And so I was like, there needs to be an app to do this. And there was some, online for free and things, but they didn't do, I felt, a super good job. So I want to make something that was just more fit to my needs and hopefully other people would like it. So a few products like that I'm working on, but mainly I'm just trying to focus on the videos.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying it out, and my favorite part for sure was the fact that you can compare it to videos that are like in the same kind of world. Like I would type in you and other people that do like design stuff, because it doesn't really matter what my thumbnail looks like next to like Mr. Beast or something, because exactly. I don't think it's going to be like competing for that ever.
It's just, the whole content game is just strange, man, because it's like two different people can make the exact same content and one do amazing and the other just do terrible. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes like the reason something does well is just not that clear. Like it's very easy, for instance, for me to look back on a video, like my realistic logo video, right? It's got like 7 million views now. Mm-hmm. I had no idea it was going to do that good. I mean, I could sit back and be like, all right, here's all the reasons it was successful. But I mean, I had no idea. I was just making a video. And so like, it's very hard to figure out what people want and then why they like the things that they like. Because it's not always that obvious. Because I remember when I first started out, my entire philosophy is like, I just want to do quality over quantity. But the problem was I didn't really understand what quality was. Like I thought quality was like, let's have really good visuals and good animations and cool transitions and stuff. But quality, I think now is much more about, keeping people engaged, interesting storytelling, like breaking up some of the monotony that can happen in design videos with little jokes or little clips or tell something beyond just what's happening on the screen. Rather than saying like, okay, I'm going to paint in these shadows here, like explain something beyond just the obvious. And so that's what I try to do more of these days to reach, I guess, that more 10,000 foot view of the process rather than like into the nitty gritty. And it didn't really matter if like the animations are super good or like what resolution the video was or anything like that. Like those fundamental storytelling engagement aspects were the quality I was missing, I think, from my first videos, which did much, much worse than the new ones.
You can only get to the quality from the quantity,
Yeah.
Like you have to try and try and try. And I'm nowhere where I want to be yet in terms of goals. But even when I look back at my old stuff, I'm like, damn, it's cool that how YouTube works because everyone can discover old stuff. But I'm also like, I don't want, this almost doesn't represent me that well either. But I also don't want to delete it. So there's a lot there too. What were, do you think like some of the main big points that you felt you were doing wrong then and now you don't do, or things you've improved on?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Let me think. I mean, obviously pacing was a huge issue, I think, in the first videos. Like I mentioned earlier, just having random cuts of silence and being more focused on showing people every little detail rather than a nice, smooth, seamless story. And I know some people suggest this in YouTube, but it was terrible for me. It's like I tried to start out by making a series. And so it's like, I wanted like a templated format that I could do and just churn content out, because I mean, I was just starting. I didn't know really how hard it was going to be. And so I'm like, I came up with this idea of doing the 5-minute design series. So they were supposed to be 5-minute videos, just going over a single design in a somewhat quick time frame.
Right.
And that was good, I suppose, in a way, because it made starting really easy. But then I kind of got into this mindset of like, every video needs to be like all the other videos because they're fitting into a series, into like a little library. And man, that's like the most thing that will stunt your growth more than anything. You know, thinking that this video needs to be like the last videos. Because you can't change things at that point. You can't experiment, you can't take risks. And once I started to do that, I started to figure out, you know, what kind of worked, what didn't work. I went through a phase where I completely changed my content from screen recordings to just full like 100% animation on the screen, just as more of a storytelling aspect, to remove the UI of Photoshop and all that completely out of the picture, because I wanted to focus on design thinking rather than like how to use the software. And people didn't enjoy them as much. And they would prefer to have me sitting down there in the corner doing something on Photoshop, which kind of goes back to like the whole like what is quality idea. I thought quality was nice, cool, fancy animations, but no, the people just wanted a realistic, authentic process, I guess.
You mentioned to me too that you quit like for a year or something at some point. What caused that? And then when you came back, what was like the hit or whatever that helped you, gave you like hope again?
So there's a few things that caused it. One, I was getting really frustrated because the videos weren't getting the views that I thought they deserved. That was probably just arrogance on my part, because I think every YouTuber, especially when they starts out, thinks their videos are better than they actually are. And I still think the videos were good. They weren't like mass appeal good, but even compared to other design content out there, I thought mine was at least better, you know, and I thought it should get at least the same amount of views, if not more. And that just wasn't happening. I mean, I made some mistakes, you know, too, especially like I did a lot of videos over like redesigning something from a TV show or a movie. And that was like a cool idea, I think. But it fundamentally seemed to hurt me in the algorithm because my videos were being recommended to people who liked TV shows and movie shows, and they weren't being recommended to like designers. Yeah. And so I wasn't getting hardly any organic growth at all. Like the only time that I would get subscribers was if I posted my video to Reddit or to Facebook groups or something like that. And so it was 100% just manual growth. And that became exhausting. And it got to the point, man, to where it didn't matter if I uploaded a video or didn't upload a video. I would get maybe 20 subscribers a day, just every day. Because I'd kind of exhausted the Reddit groups and the Facebook groups. Like anybody there that was going to follow me from my posts had already followed me. I was getting very small organic growth on YouTube. And so I'm like, you know, I'm just going to kind of quit this for now. Mainly because when I took my break, there was a big crypto boom. And I just got into that and just started really my first little run of investing. And I was making a lot more money in investing than I was in YouTube and stuff. So I was like, well, I can sit here and literally do nothing and make money from investments, or I can pour all my time into YouTube and nobody watch them. Right. And so I did that for a while, and that worked out good. But as with every increase in the market, there is a decrease in the market. And so as soon as things really just like tanked in that sphere, then I'm like, well, it's probably time to try to pick up some other career path again. Yeah. And that's really why I came back to YouTube at that point. I was kind of worried because, like I said, I hadn't posted for a year. So I didn't know if people even cared anymore, if they remembered me, or if the channel was just dead or not. But I made one video coming back with the idea that I'm not going to do anything from the TV shows, the movies. I want to try to train the algorithm to know that I do design content. Right. And so I came back with just like a simple designing spice labels or something like that video. And it did as good as my other videos. So I didn't do like better. And so at that point I was like, okay, so the channel's not dead. So that's some sign of hope.
We're back to where we were.
Back to where we were. Yeah. Which is better. It's not too bad. And the next video, though, was the one that took off. And that was the one where I designed I did a design for a chip bag in like 5 minutes, 30 minutes, and unlimited time. It just blew everything out of the water. Like all the other videos had maybe 20,000 views or something. But the chip video got over 1 million pretty quickly. And that was just like there was, even to this day, there's been no feeling like of rush and excitement as that video got. Because I mean, everybody that starts out their YouTube career, they're wanting like, can I make it? Am I going to be the one that makes it? Or am I going to be like the 95% of people that don't get anywhere? And I believed firmly up until that point that I was probably going to be in the 95%. But that video showed me that there is potential to do something better, to reach to, I guess, a higher rung than I thought was possible. And I think that video did so well because I stole the concept from illustrators. I mean, there was a lot of people that did like drawings in 5 minutes, 30 minutes, in an hour, and they had tons of views. I'm like, well, if that works for, just regular drawing artists, maybe it'll work for design. And it turns out it did. Yeah,
that's cool. And one thing I noticed too is sometimes I get frustrated the same way. Like, man, this shit's so much work. And then the video's like, does very all right. And you're just like, or you do a video that took less work and it does great. And you're kind of like, that's really annoying. It's cool that was that easy. And then, I also think about it though. I try to be grateful because even though like the design niche is so specific that even though my channel is not like huge, I feel like if I was just like comedy or any other mainstream thing, I would be making like no money. But since it's such a niche, like I'm still doing all right. I get sponsors and whatnot, and it's relatively small compared to the grand scheme of things. So sometimes I think like, what is making it? Maybe I haven't fully reached this trending or like top page like kind of sphere that people strive to, but on the other hand, sometimes I feel like maybe I have made it because I have this community. I do things I like and it generates income, so it's pretty cool.
Well, I think you just have to remember, like, not all viewers are created the same. It's the same reason why it's more impressive to have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube than it is to have 100,000 TikTok followers. Those are two very different things. And the same thing applies to niches. Like, I'm not gonna say it's easy, but it's much more possible to get like 100,000 subscribers for a Minecraft channel on YouTube than it is in some other niches. Now, whether that's more impressive or not, I guess you can argue. But even within niches, like a lot of my viewers are not designers. They're more there for the entertainment and things like that. So in terms of, I guess, from a business standpoint, if I want to sell design courses, for instance, I could have a ton of views, but there's a small portion of those people that would actually be interested in my design course. Whether, like in your case, most all of your views come from designers, I would imagine. And so if you did something like that, then you'd have a much more. It's hard to say if our I guess like economic possibilities are like that different when it comes to those targets. Because I mean, I've heard many channels like people with 1 million subscribers that don't make hardly any money. And there'll be some guy over here with 30,000 subscribers that's making like 50 grand a month off stuff.
Especially like finance and things like those niches, because it's just people watching it that their whole goal is to spend and make money. So it's like, I know like the redesigning type videos is what have been your like last few. And it seems like the success of those have been informing some of like your planning and future content. Do you plan on that now becoming like just one of your maybe like buckets of things, or the only type of thing you want to continue to do?
I think for now, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's like the mentality. And I really do enjoy redesigning things. I think it's a good format. I think it's sometimes more interesting to see a transformation in something rather than to make something from scratch, just because there's a reference point beforehand. And I think, for better or worse, like rebrands, when they happen in real life, get a lot of conflict. People either, if Pepsi redesigns their logo,
it's true.
Half the people will hate it, half the people will love it. And being able to get that kind of energy on YouTube is, I think, something very valuable as well. Like, obviously, I don't want half my viewers to hate my designs, but I do want them to have an opinion about it.
Sure.
And I think it's much easier to have an opinion on something that exists and has now changed than something that was just, whipped up in thin air. So for now, I'll probably stick with that type of content. And like I said, maybe on the short form content, I may experiment with some other types of things. But really, my main concern is that at some point, I'm going to run out of popular products.
I was thinking right now, what things do people know about, up to a certain point?
How many videos can I make? At this point, I don't know. I've still got like a huge library of products to pull from. And, but you know, some things aren't just, they're just not suited for videos. So like even now I spend a lot of time planning video ideas and picking out what products I can do for videos. Like sometimes I have a really good idea for a video concept, but I just can't find the products that are well known enough to use in that video. And so I'll just scrap it. And like I've got a decently long checklist of things that a video has to meet before I move forward with it, which is totally different than how I approach things, you know, when I first started the channel. But I think it's made a really big difference.
Yeah, that's good. I definitely need to do more of that, because sometimes, like, you know, I make a video, it's good. I'm proud of it. I like the way it came out. I enjoy the designs that were actually crafted inside the video. Thumbnail, title, whatever is, you know, sleepless night over thinking about that. And then I realize maybe this idea just isn't like enough for people to like. The thumbnail and title can only be so interesting outside of the concept, you know. Like you can optimize that as much as possible, but you've done a good job at making things like simple and clear in a way. Like I recently did this video where I made like trading cards of designers, and I was like almost thinking maybe I should just say like making designs of designers, because trading card is such a specific thing, you know. It's like hard to almost market, and I think that's why you've done a good job with that simple, like can't really confuse it when you have here's this, here's an arrow, here's this, make your own kind of conclusions at that point.
Yeah, and I think when you first start YouTube, it's enormously easy to underestimate how important a thumbnail and a title is to a video. Like when I first started, I'd spend tons of time on the video, and I would literally make the thumbnail like an hour before I uploaded. And now like I make the thumbnail first before I make the video. Like I obviously don't have the final designs and stuff to put in there, but you know, if I'm designing a product like the last video I did with like the Pringles, the redesign, I made sure to put the Pringles on the thumbnail and then just some other random design on there. Like, does it fit good on the thumbnail? You know, are the colors good enough to pop? And if it doesn't, then, you know, I would have thrown it out.
Right.
And even for, you know, this next video that I'm working on, which is going to come out in a few days. I mean, there was a lot of products that I would have liked to put in the video, but they just didn't look good on the thumbnail. And so I had to find that one that was like, all right, this is the one that's going to fit. So that's going to be my main thing. And then I can pick, you know, a couple other products to go along with that. But now I make sure to do that to validate that idea first.
Right.
No.
Yeah, that's good. And I've also had things where sometimes I think I'll make a video that is for designers, but it could definitely be for any type of artist or freelancer or just creative. And then I try to market it that way, and it almost alienates the initial audience. But then if you market it to designers, people don't think that they would ever need to watch that, because they're like, oh, well, I'm a videographer or whatever, you know. That's like, it's such a weird world. Like I think that I'm just making videos on the internet. I'm not trying to act like this is the worst job or anything, but I think people underestimate how much, like, like you said, that shit matters. Cause like the video is almost not the easier part, but it takes longer time, but I'm more confident in that part, you know. The packaging definitely takes the longest to learn, I think, on YouTube.
Yeah. The idea is everything. It's like spending all your time on an idea and then questioning, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? And just like tossing and turning in your sleep. It's like, should I go with this or should I go with that? It's like, I'm going to spend 2 weeks on a video. If I put it out and it's not a good idea and it does terrible, I just wasted my time.
Right.
And at this point, you know, a bad video is a lot more, you know, has a lot more weight to it than I guess when back in the day, to when like videos weren't getting that many views. It's like, that is one thing I think people may not realize, and I didn't realize it really. It's like when your videos don't get a ton of attention, you can take more risks. You know, it's a little bit easier to put yourself out there, to try new things. If it doesn't do good, no big deal. Right. But like once you get kind of a steamroll going, I guess you get some traction built up. You know, like it would be really bad if I popped out a video now and it got like 50,000 views. Like, for me at least, like I know that's that's a lot of views obviously, and that's a good video, But in comparison, you just don't want that. That looks bad.
Yeah.
In terms of your current audience, it looks bad for sponsors. You know, there's a lot more, I think.
Yeah, I'm not that hurt by that.
Nah, I didn't mean
Nah, you're good, bro. I feel you though. Like that, I think that's where that whole like second channel syndrome comes in, because they feel almost like locked into their big grand ideas that they can't even do what they wanted to do in the first place, which is just make kind of fun videos.
Because at a certain point, your audience expects certain things, which, you know, is kind of a blessing, honestly, that I took that year off, which like I had the same audience when I came back, but it had been a long enough time to where I felt like I could try something different, and, you know, it wouldn't be like that unexpected.
Yeah.
And so,
do you feel pretty confident these days that if you come up with like a good idea to you, that like you vetting it usually results in it actually works?
it's a little early to tell. Like, to be honest, this year has been the only year that my videos have done really good. So I'm not going to pretend like I'm some expert up here and I've conquered YouTube or something like that. That's just not the case. I've been very fortunate that the videos kind of got picked up in the algorithm, and then I found a format that people like. But I have certainly, it's very similar to designing, right? Because like when you first start out trying to learn design, you have really bad taste. Like you can't tell if what you make is good or bad because you couldn't pick a good or bad design out from a lineup, you know, of other people's work. Like the more that you do it, the more you start to realize, okay, that's a good design, and that's a little bit better than this. I think it's the same thing with videos. It's like I can look at a video now and be like, okay, this is a good video. Well, you know, how well it does, I don't really know, but it's as good as at least as my other videos. And that's something I don't think I could have done as well before. Because I try to expose myself to, you know, a lot more content outside just the design niche. Like I barely watch any design videos at all.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to just focus on, I guess, those more entertainment aspects from more popular videos that I can pull from.
Yeah, I do that a lot with definitely a lot more related, but I really like what a lot of just like art people are doing, like artists, not just illustrators, and a lot of it's not even art. It's almost like lifestyle art-ish, and like I see people doing stuff like that with like their art studios and just like, you know, more storytelling, and I'm like, yeah, this is actually a lot nicer to watch than just someone sitting at like a screen or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Now that you've kind of dialed in the content that you like to work in, can you take me a little bit through the process of how you start with like the grand idea or canceling ideas or whatever, all the way up to like the publishing mode or whatever your last step is?
Yeah, the step. All right. So I have a giant list of ideas, like in like a Notion document and stuff. Probably maybe 100 ideas or something in there that I've just brainstormed over time, and I'll pick out like a handful that I think are decently good. And then I'll go and do some research to see if there's any other videos, like not in the design space, but just, you know, could be anywhere, that just to get any idea on like, is this a good idea? Is this a subject people are interested in? Like for the, for my ultra realistic logo video, I thought, I actually got that video from the Fat Dino dude I was telling you about earlier. I was like, if he can make, you know, simple games look ultra realistic, maybe I can make simple designs or logos ultra realistic, and, you know, people might like it. And so it's really just trying to find some form of validation in the idea from content that already exists. So once I get to the point where like, okay, I've got an idea, at least a concept that I think is good, then I'll spend, I don't know, man, I spend sometimes a day or 2 days trying to figure out what products to put in the video. Like I'll be that like picky about it.
It's good though.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get maybe 50 products or something. Like for my last video for the overcomplicating simple designs, like I had a bunch of options that I could have chosen, and it was a process to peel them down, because what I try to do in the videos is I never want to do like the same thing twice. And so I try to pick products that are very different styles, and so then I can end up with very different results. Because if two products, for instance, are nothing but illustrations, that's kind of boring. You know, one can be, but then the next one could be a lot more like, you know, Photoshop work or something rather than painting and stuff. And so I'll try to do that. And then I'll also try to make sure no two products are very similar in of themselves, like in terms of the container. So if like the first product is a bag, the second product will be a bottle. And then maybe the third product will be a box. I'll never have two bottles. Does it matter? I don't really know, but I think it makes a better video. So that's what I do. When I first started making videos, literally I would just come up with a rough concept and then sit down in front of the camera and film it. I would do no planning, no scripting, no anything before. And that was like, I was exhausting, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, it was very hard to just come up with really cool ideas, as well as to try to make the narration interesting and tell some type of story, but I didn't know where it was going to end. And now it's a much more, I guess, planned out and refined process. So I'll make all the designs beforehand. So I know like what the final designs are going to look like. I'll write out a script. So like I try to be somewhat natural on camera, but most of it is actually scripted. Mm-hmm. But I try to script it in a way that it's like I'm leading people on a journey in real time. So I want it to feel that way. But I'm not clever enough to come up with like little quips or jokes or things like that just on the fly. And so I need that type of script to rely on. But it also helps me to be able to plan like interesting moments in the video. So if I want to insert a little meme here or a little like clip from a movie to make a point here, then, I know that beforehand. Right. And I can see how that's going to fit into the overall flow of things.
And you're not just forced to do it on the moments that were maybe slow or whatever in the footage. Right.
And doing it beforehand, I can ensure that there are zero slow moments. Like now, like something is always happening all the time. And so I'll do that. I'll sit down, film the video, recreate the design while I, say the lines and stuff and try to make that as authentic as possible. And then just go into editing. And editing is a process, as you know, it's its own little beast to deal with. But my favorite part of the process for sure, because like you can film something and you can know exactly, what you're going to say because you have a script, and you can know exactly what's on the screen because you were looking at it while you filmed, but you still don't know how the video is going to turn out when you watch it. And so it's like you first sit down and start to edit, and you can either like breathe a sigh of relief, like, okay, this turned out pretty good, or you're just kind of crushed because it's like, well, this was bad, I'm gonna have to redo it.
Yeah, you do a really good, like hearing a little bit more about that process, you do a really good job at making it seem like you're creating the design for the first time at that moment. It doesn't feel like, you're just clicking on and off layers or whatever to reveal like the product. So is there ever any, you feel difference in the one you made before and after, for better or for worse?
Just like in terms of productivity and just ease of making the video, it's much better now. Like I feel like, I can make much better designs. Like there's no way I could sit down at a computer and just like make that Pringles design, for instance, without a lot of trial and error. I think that's what people maybe don't get from the videos is like for this new video that's going to come out, for the first product, I did probably 4 different designs for it before I picked the one that was actually going to be in the video. It's like I liked the others, but they just weren't up to the standard that I wanted. And so I just worked and worked and worked until I got one that was. And that's not something I could do live. And I hope it doesn't come off as like I'm trying to fool people that it's live, but I like to see it more as like the steps in the video actually happened. Like these were the thoughts that I actually had while making them. I'm just cutting out all of the errors and the mistakes and the wrong directions that I took throughout the process to make it more watchable.
Considering I don't do it that way, and maybe I'll have like a mood board or whatever with some of the things I'm designing, I'm pretty proud that they come out how they do, because I'm just like, let's go. Like this is going to be the design that we finish, But it would be a lot probably smoother from the non-design side to do that first and then go in and recreate it. So, but
I will say though, even scripting it out, I'm not entirely sure that the filming process has gotten any quicker. So like right now, my videos are probably 10 minutes, 11 minutes usually on that, but I'll end up with usually on average 6 hours of footage to cut down. Wow. Yeah. And so it still takes a lot of time, because it's not like I go in there and just like turn on and off layers from a design. Like I actually try to, make things or move things in places and stuff. And that still takes a lot of time to try to show those steps.
Right. Yeah. And your work, I think, would be real obvious if you were doing it that way, because you're painting and you're adding in cracks. It would be obvious if you just see like all of a sudden a group get turned on where everything's like high res all of a sudden or whatever. What other type of videos have you been looking to for inspiration outside of the design world? Like I know you mentioned you got some of those ideas where it's like, what if this had RTX on or whatever, like things like that. Is there any other niches or just formats that you've been interested in that you think could work in your design stuff?
I don't think there's a specific niche. It's more about like, I guess, techniques that people use. So, I mean, obviously everybody's going to say that they're inspired by Mr. Beast, but I think, to some degree, his content is like the most hyper version of YouTube that exists. And I don't want to go to that level, but I think some of the things that he does in terms of the amount of cuts that he does. Like I saw a stat once that like in most of their videos, they'll have in the intro, like a cut every 1 second or every 2 seconds. Like it's insane. But just hearing that, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go and cut every single second, but maybe I can add more cuts to my videos to, help just keep the pace up. And so I did, and people liked that. And, he likes to put things like have a story throughout his entire video that is like, you've got your little segmented stories, but then you've got one long story that flows throughout the entire video. And so back when I was doing my first videos, the entire story was just let's make a design. And now I've got different products for the small stories, but they're all based around a similar theme, like overcomplicating or making ultra realistic or simplifying. And like, that's a good enough story, even though it's like simple, to keep people, I think, interested in knowing what to expect while also surprising them with the small steps. Yeah.
I think your videos too, using that, like those semantics is what helps it branch out outside of design.
Yeah.
Cause you can say I redesigned these simply or whatever. Maybe that could be like an alternate title. And that gives someone a lot more of an idea, like this is graphic design, but you're almost leaving yourself open to like, this could be any type of video. I could be making this physically. I could be making this digitally, whatever. And I think I've been trying to experiment with that more too, like saying I made rather than designed, because design's also just for being design isn't a well-designed word, which is kind of funny. Like it doesn't look aesthetic on like a title or whatever. That's cool though, man. I think last things I wanted to ask you is that I know a lot of designers personally, like in the community, who do short form, who do just freelance work, who work at agencies, all different types of backgrounds. And I know a lot of them are somewhat interested in doing something in like long form, whether it be videos and things like you're doing or me or any other people. If you just had to give maybe any other things that we haven't talked about, journey or advice that you've learned from doing that, I would love to know what that may be.
Well, I'd say that it'd be the same advice I would give anybody that wants to make YouTube, and the same advice I probably would have given to my younger self too, is like, I think like everything in life, something that looks really cool that you like just really think you want to do is not as cool as you think it is. Like, it's cool to have 1 million subscribers or whatever. The process to get there, not that fun, to be honest. Like it takes a lot more work, and I think it can be very easy for some people to turn their passion into a job and for them to start to hate it. And so you kind of have to be careful. Like you have to be the type of person that loves doing what you're doing, even when it's really difficult, And I've had some friends that, they're kind of into art and stuff, and they want to turn it into a career. And trying to do that, they realized that the career aspect just killed all of their motivation for doing art in the first place.
Right.
So I think you have to look at content through that lens. And also, like I said earlier, don't be afraid to grow, to try new things, to see what works out there, and have them try to keep your expectations in check to how good your videos actually are. Like make sure you get feedback from people that aren't your friends, that are just going to tell you, yeah, man, that's great. You need like real honest feedback, and that hurts a lot of times. So you kind of got to develop a thick skin, but that's the only way that you get better. I mean, that may sound like generic advice, but I think a lot of times most of the generic advice is the advice people should take. Like there's not some big secret to YouTube. Like all these gurus are trying to sell you. The idea is like, you need to make a good video. You need to find out what good means to your specific audience, because it's not the same for every audience. Like quality, how you define quality is different. And so that may take a little while for you to discover, and just figuring out how to take, I guess, one thing I read a long time ago, it was from some book, like from Pixar creators, or I think it was actually Disney creators. And they said what they would do back in the day when they were making their animations is they had this philosophy called plussing. And so they would do an animation and they'd be like, okay, this is good. Now how can we make it better? And then they would change something. It's like, all right, that's good, but now how can we make it a little bit better? And they would just iterate and iterate and iterate, and every stage was better than the last. And I think you have to do that to your videos if you want to grow, and you just have to get out of this mindset that like, this is good enough. You kind of got to, you don't want to get to a perfectionist state to where like you never post anything. And sometimes I fall into that, but you certainly have to take a more critical view, I think, of what you're doing to see your own flaws. Yeah.
Beautiful, man. Thank you. And I appreciate you chatting with me. And it was really nice meeting you and getting to talk for a little bit.
Happy to do it anytime.
Sweet. All right, everyone go check out Brandon on YouTube and everything else. I'll link it below, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Thanks.